Hi, everyone. I'm just giving it a couple of seconds for people to come in before I get started. I can see some people are coming in, so that's great. Welcome to my second live stream ever. We'll get started in just a second. But yeah, so I decided to start running these live streams because learning about my breath has just changed so much in my life. And I really, really deeply believe it's one of the few things that I so strongly believe in, that many people would benefit from learning about their breathing, understanding how their breathing works, and how they can use it to feel more focused, have more energy, feel more connected to themselves, to the people around them, to the work that they're doing. And I find it quite interesting that breath work is often used in the context of healing and kind of therapeutic contexts, which is definitely important and has its place. But breath work is actually so much more than that. It's also about focus and productivity and managing your energy states. And that's where I have personally felt the most benefit. And yeah, I've just been exploring breath science and breath work over the last 2 years, have been going through several certifications, and I just want to use these live streams to share some of the stuff that I've been learning. So today we're talking about our nostrils. And I find it super, super fascinating considering that it's something that applies to literally every single one of us. If you're watching this and you have a nose, then this applies to you. And most of us have no idea. So let's jump in and start talking about this. It's called the nasal cycle. That's the topic of today. This is a live stream, so if you have any questions, just drop them in the chat, because I obviously can't see you and can't really interact with you, which is something that I do have to get used to just talk to a screen. But if you have questions, just drop them in the chat, and then I'll get to them as I'm going along or at the end. So before we jump in, I just want to take a couple of seconds to connect to our breathing, to just kind of sit down, relax, and pay attention to our breathing. So we're just going to start by taking 3 conscious, slow breaths in and out through the nose. And there's no need to count. There's no need to do anything specific. Just make your breathing slower than usual. You can close your eyes and breathe in and out through the nose. And for the next couple of breath cycles, I want you to direct all of your brain power to noticing the feeling of that air coming in and out of your nostrils. See if you can feel that air in your nostrils or around your nostrils. And then see if you can even make your breathing so gentle as if to stop the hairs in your nostrils from moving. So just very gentle and slow breaths in and out through the nose. And just do a couple more breath cycles like this. Relax your face, relax your shoulders. Feel that air coming in and out. All right. I hope that felt relaxing. I hope you're in a kind of calm mood to listen and to learn about this, because I want to talk about specifically about our nostrils and something called the nasal cycle. Now, you might have heard about nasal breathing before and the importance of breathing through our nose when we're at rest, right? During the day as well as when we're sleeping. Now, breathing through the nose versus breathing through the mouth has a whole list of benefits, from purifying and humidifying air to better oxygenation of our cells and of our tissues. So it's more than well established that breathing through the nose is the absolute foundation of healthy and functional breathing. And that's something that's more and more known by the general public. Now, there's a whole other aspect to our nose and to our nostrils that I didn't know about until a couple of weeks ago, and that honestly blew my mind. So we're going to start by doing a little experiment, a little test. And I'd like to ask you to block your left nostril and breathe in and out through the right. And then block your right nostril and breathe in and out through the left. Now, did you know, and you can do this a couple of times. If it's not immediately clear, usually it's very clear, sometimes it's less clear, but you can do this a couple of times. But did you notice how there is one nostril that's easier to breathe through? It's easier to kind of get the air in and out. Now, it turns out that's not a coincidence. It turns out that's not random. That's always the case. Like we never breathe equally through both nostrils. And I feel like I had noticed that a few times when I'm sick or when my nose is clogged, but I thought that was just related to being sick. But it turns out it has nothing to do with that. It's a natural pattern, a natural cycle that happens throughout the day, sick or healthy. And it's a cycle that's linked to our ultradian cycle, so kind of the fluctuating energy levels of our body. Now, the dominant nostril switches roughly every 30 minutes to 4 hours on average. It really depends on the person. So for some people, it's shorter, for other people, it's longer. So every kind of 30 minutes to 4 hours, the dominance of your nostril switches from left to right, and back. Now, we're going to talk about what we can do with this information. But first, I want to talk about how the nose does this, because I think that's actually quite interesting. So the interior of our nose is covered with erectile tissue. So that's the same tissue that covers the penis, the clitoris, the nipples. And the switching between our nostrils happens because our bodies deliberately send blood to this erectile tissue in our nose, which then increases its size. And so as the tissue swells, more or less airflow can come through one of the nostrils. And then after a few hours, that airflow switches to the other nostril. So that in and of itself, I already find a super interesting thing to know about this thing we have on our face. Now, why exactly the nose does this? That is not entirely clear yet. Like there's been a lot of research done on this since the 1950s, and there's a lot of different conflicting theories. Some say that the switching helps with protecting the nose from all kind of allergies and infections. Others say that it's about helping us detect odors more efficiently. So there's a lot that's known about this nasal cycle and a lot that's unknown. But one of the things that is clearly established by modern science, and that's in particular what I want to talk about today, is the link between this nasal cycle and our autonomic nervous system activity. And this is where I think it becomes really interesting. So really simply put, our autonomic nervous system, when we talk about our autonomic nervous system, we're talking about two different branches, right? And most of you might have already heard about this, but so we have our sympathetic nervous system, which is also called our fight or flight system, which is responsible for creating feelings of alertness and activation and movement. Then we have our parasympathetic nervous system, which is also called our rest and digest system, and that's responsible for calm and relaxation. Now, throughout the day, we're constantly kind of shifting between these two branches of our nervous system. We're constantly moving between states of go, 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 and activation and mobilization and movement to states of calm and balance and recovery and digestion. So a healthy individual kind of moves between these two states throughout the day, depending on the time of day as well as the context that we're in. Now, the link with this erectile tissue in our nose is that the dominance of our nostril is linked to the state of our autonomic nervous system. So it turns out that when your right nostril is dominant, so when it's easier to breathe in and out through the right, this is linked to increased sympathetic activity. So that means you're in a state that's more alert and focused and energetic. When your left nostril is dominant, so easier to breathe in and out through the left, that means that you're in an increased parasympathetic state, so a more relaxed and calm state. So I think that's amazing. Just by kind of paying attention to which nostril is more dominant, you can get some information about you can get some information about the state of your brain and of your body. which is just in terms of awareness, very interesting, but also in terms of certain breathing techniques that we can use. And that's what I'll talk about now, because this link between the nasal cycle and autonomic nervous system activity is well established by modern science. But what's really, really interesting, even more interesting probably, is that this nasal cycle has been talked about for centuries. There are plenty of ancient yogic texts where this cycle has been described. Obviously, not kind of researched or proven by any science, but just by experience and observation and practice, that yogis understood that their nose and their breathing were actually very powerful tools to get insight into the energetic states of their brain and of their body. So these techniques have been around for centuries, and it's only now in the last however many years that modern science is starting to get interested as well, and is starting to do research around these techniques. Granted, sometimes with mixed findings. However, there are more than enough promising findings to make this a really interesting technique to experiment with. And the fact that it has been around for centuries and that humans have been kind of observing the impact of these techniques for centuries, for me, make it a very fascinating kind of technique to experiment with, and kind of to observe the effect that it has on our brains and on our bodies. So I think the first question is, well, not the first, the next question is, what can we actually do with this? It's great to know this phenomenon, but what can we do with this? For me personally, the first thing is simple awareness into my brain and in my body state. I feel like sometimes it's, and this is something that I definitely used to struggle with a lot, is this feeling that I should be in control of my energy states at every single moment. I want to be focused when I need to be focused. I want to be relaxed. I need to be able to sleep when I need to be able to sleep. And that's just not always the case. And having some understanding of how your body is functioning can really help with that feeling of having a little bit of compassion for yourself, and having tools at your disposal to move your body and your breathing into the desired state, instead of just kind of raging in your head and ruminating in your head. So for me, this has just given me a really good understanding and awareness of my body. And one of the kind of the great ways that you can use this is a technique called unilateral nostril breathing. So this is where you're going to be breathing through one nostril and blocking off the other one, with the attempt to activate a particular branch of your nervous system. So you're going to focus on one of the two nostrils, depending on the state that you're in and the state that you want to be in. So if you remember when I said dominant right nostril is sympathetic activity, but say you're about to go to bed, you're actually feeling quite tired, but you can't fall asleep. And when you test your nasal cycle, you notice that your right nostril is more dominant. Now, one of the things that you can do is to do some left nostril breathing to activate that parasympathetic nervous system and to bring down the amount of arousal in your autonomic nervous system. So you just do a few minutes of breathing just through the left to kind of balance out that activation and increase that parasympathetic activity. Now, you can do the same thing the other way around. Say, and I often do this when I'm about to sit down, often after lunch. I'm feeling quite low, feeling quite relaxed, feeling quite muted, but I want to increase that sympathetic activity through my breathing. Obviously, when I'm doing a live stream like this, my body does that naturally. I don't really need to do anything because I naturally feel that activation. But when I'm just about to work on a presentation, for example, and I don't kind of have that natural stress response, but I do want to increase my alertness and my focus, then I'll just do a few minutes of right nostril breathing. Because remember, right nostril is linked to sympathetic activation. So you're increasing that sympathetic nervous system activity. So there's you can play around with it in this way. And what I would recommend is in the beginning just to kind of pay attention at various times throughout the day. Like, okay, this is how I'm feeling. This is how my nasal cycle is right now. Does that match? Does that not match? Can I do a few minutes of breathing through one of both nostrils to shift my state? And you'll find that often just paying attention to your breathing, just slowing down your breathing is often enough to make a small shift, just enough to then get you going and get you doing whatever you want to be doing. So that's the unilateral nostril breathing element. Then another breathing technique, which is one of the more well-known ones, and like I said, has been probably one of the oldest breathing techniques, is called alternate nostril breathing. So this is where you're going to be alternating between both nostrils with an attempt to bring balance to the two sides of your autonomic nervous system. So here you're not trying to create any dominance in the parasympathetic or in the sympathetic. You're trying to bring a balance so that you can just feel kind of a calm, relaxed, focused alertness. I really find this a very kind of calming and centering and balancing exercise that I often do just for a couple of minutes throughout the day, kind of depending on where I am, and because this is something quite obvious that you're doing. It's a lot of breathwork techniques are very subtle and you can do them anytime, anywhere, but this one is a bit more public, so it kind of depends on where I am. But it's a very calming and centering practice. And for the next couple of minutes, because I try to keep these live streams to like 20-25 minutes, but for the next couple of minutes, I'd like to practice this with you. And we're going to specifically do alternate nostril breathing. So ideally, you're sitting down or lying down. And the idea is that we're going to switch between the two nostrils. So just relax your body, straighten your spine, and let your shoulders relax. Let your face relax. And you're going to use one of both hands, it can be your left or your right, and you're going to bring it to your face. And here you can really do what feels most comfortable. Kind of traditional hand posture, I guess, is where you like do like this with your index finger and your middle finger, and you keep your ring finger and pinky finger up and your thumb up, and then you take your thumb, put it on the right nostril, and your ring finger on the left nostril. I personally find this a bit awkward. It doesn't really work for me for some reason, so I just use my index finger and my thumb. It seems like this is really kind of the traditional posture, and is really more for people who do this kind of breathing for hours and hours, and then it's better for your wrists kind of posture. So in our case, we're just going to do this for a couple of minutes. So just use whatever feels most comfortable. Just make sure you have two fingers available to block the right and block the left. So we're going to start by breathing in through our left nostril, and then we're going to switch to the right, out and in, switch back to the left, out and in, and switch. So we're going to continually switch between these two nostrils, and I'll tell you when to switch. So this might take a couple of cycles to get used to. It's not an easy exercise to get used to, so don't worry if it's a bit awkward or clumsy in the beginning. Nobody can see you. I'm the only one that will be awkward here. So just try to follow along, try to focus on your breathing, and try to make your breathing very gentle and slow, and obviously through the nose. So take your thumb and close your right nostril, and we're going to slowly breathe in through the left. Then switch, block your left nostril, and breathe out through the right. In through the right, switch, out through the left. In through the left, switch, out through the right. In through the right. Switch. Out. In. Switch. Out. You can close your eyes. And really just focus on making your breathing very light and gentle and slow. And if you lose count, that's okay. Just start again. This is also a part of focus training and staying connected to the pattern of in and out and switch. So if you lose focus, if you lose the pattern, just start again by going in and switching. Do a few more cycles. And try to finish the practice by completing this exercise with an exhalation through the left nostril. And then let go of your hand and just breathe normally again. I'd love to hear in the chat from a few people how that felt. Good, bad, awkward, relaxing? Is this the first time you've done this? Just a few kind of observations or experiences would be great to hear. Now, as I said, this is a great practice to do at home. Whenever you just need to balance your nervous system. And it's like a great stress relief exercise. And relaxing. Yeah, definitely. So yeah, I hope this was interesting. I hope you were as kind of fascinated by this concept of nasal cycle and the erectile tissue in your nose. I hope this is information you'll pass on to family and friends tonight at the dinner table. I think it's a pretty cool fact. And yeah, let me know if you have any questions. You can follow up on Twitter or LinkedIn. Just send me a DM. I'm doing these live streams 2 to 3 times a month, and I'm also running workshops and doing one-on-one coaching. So if you want to learn more about breath work and what it can do for you, specifically in terms of productivity and focus, then reach out. I'm always happy to chat. So thanks everyone for being here and for listening. And yeah, I'll see you on the next one. I'll just stay for another minute in case anyone has any questions. Thank you. Okay, doesn't seem like there's any questions, so I'm going to end